Got the scanner done real early today, which gives me a lot more time and some time to get another segment of this infamous nonsense called the TRIMET board meeting. My last episode was age restricted by YouTube. I'm not sure why. Must have been profanity. Who knows? I'm surprised they haven't banned me. I'm talking the anti-establishment stuff. Can't have that. You know how it is now. We're in the New World Order. We're in a totalitarian society. It's no longer free speech anywhere to be found. If you don't get with the program, they ban you. Anyway, this board meeting has just been a joke. It's just a joke. But we'll continue.
Item within our agenda. Is everybody connected with me?
Yes.
I see a lot of frozen faces.
Yes, we are. Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes.
We can hear you fine.
Give me a nod if we are all still connected.
Give us a nod.
You're all still connected, President Simmons.
President Simmons,
Okay,
attention to the president.
All right, so our first...
We're connected to President Simmons.
item of business is our consent agenda. And items that appear on the consent agenda are usually considered routine and can be approved by one blanket motion. Today we have two items on the consent agenda. One is our board meeting minutes from September, and the other is a resolution authorizing contract modification with
give them more money. Contract modification means they want more money, and guess what? TRIMET always has more money for these things. Always. All you got to do is ask, and here's more millions just for you. Crony capitalist America, the purpose of government is crime.
Company to upgrade LED lighting fixtures and controls at 9 TRIMET facilities. And the board might recall that we have approved previously resolutions related to upgrading lighting, and this just adds more locations where the lighting will be improved. So having said that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, or does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
And I can't see anything. Thank you.
President Simmons. What kind of
is there a
president?
second?
Laverne seconds.
Thank you, Director Lewis. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
No discussion.
Hearing none, and I'm not seeing anybody. All right. Since there isn't any discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Any opposed?
Of course
Any
not.
abstentions?
No.
All right. The measure carries. We'll now go on to the first resolution, 21-1047, authorizing a contract with, is it SECO? SECO Incorporated, better known as Carlson.
For bulk hydrocarbon diesel to lessen your carbon footprint, even though you can't provide the service and the service crap. But you're going to lessen your footprint and put it in the paper, and all the mainstream media will keep pumping it out, and everybody will think you're wonderful.
For bulk R99 renewable hydrocarbon diesel fuel. General Manager Dessou, your comments.
It's here.
Thanks, President Simmons, members of the board. I'm excited about this resolution that comes before you now. It continues an initiative extremely important to TRIMET that was first identified before the pandemic. That's our transition to renewable or green diesel fuel for our buses. The buses currently run on ultra-low sulfur diesel and biodiesel fuel. While these are greener and cleaner options over traditional diesel, change into renewable diesel will be a game changer for us. This will help TriMet reduce our carbon footprint while transitioning to a zero emissions bus fleet. This resolution before you now would authorize a contract with Seco Inc., better known to many as Carson, to fuel our fixed route bus fleet with R99. I'm going to bring in Les Spittler, our Director of Procurement and Supply Chain Management, to provide a closer look at R99, the environmental benefit in our procurement. Les?
Thanks, Sam. Good morning, President Simmons, directors of the board. Thanks, Kimberly. I'm going to walk you through a 10-slide presentation that's going to give an overview of what renewable diesel is and some of the benefits.
Let's see what it is.
Next slide, please.
All right.
So what is renewable diesel? It is a non-petroleum fuel that is colorless, odorless, cleaner burning, and is made from renewable and sustainable raw materials. You can see the image there, the clear difference.
What are the renewable and sustainable? Notice how they never actually tell you what are those materials. You just say 100% renewable. Well, what are they? Tell us what they are. Why does every one of these meetings have to be so vague with specifics?
Renewable diesel is clear. Petroleum-based diesel is not clear. Next slide, please.
I have to look it up myself.
Neste is the manufacturer. They're the company that Carson Oil is getting the renewable diesel from. They use a mix of used cooking oil, renewable waste, and agricultural oils as feedstock for their renewable diesel. And through a proprietary process, they turn those feedstocks into renewable diesel, which is also...
Through a proprietary process. Here you go. Only we get to know what it is, and we need to make money on it because it's proprietary. So what is it here? Okay, here it is. Okay, here's the breakdown. Use cooking oil, waste animal fat, waste fish fat, vegetable oils, and residue oils.
Referred to as green diesel or R99. Next slide, please. This is just another image to see how much cleaner burning renewable diesel is. Renewable diesel is the flame on the left, and petroleum-based diesel is the flame on the right.
All right, why not, right? I'm all for it. Why wouldn't I be? Why not? Sure, do it.
And you can see that it's going to help us reduce our greenhouse gas emissions up to 61% from our bus fleet. Next slide, please. This slide just sort of compares renewable diesel versus biodiesel, which is what we're using now. While renewable diesel is made from some of the same materials as biodiesel, the difference in production creates a fuel that is chemically identical to petroleum-based diesel. Because of that, there's no need to modify the fuel systems on our buses. Renewable diesel doesn't retain the amount of water that biodiesel does, and it creates less soot, which reduces the buildup on our fuel filters. So we actually think that by moving to renewable diesel, we will save in labor maintenance and material as well on the buses, in addition to cleaning up our air. Next slide, please. The move to renewable diesel was one of TRIMET's top climate actions, first identified in 2019. Next slide, please. By 2040, our plan is to
2040, 20 years. I'll be dead. A lot of people I know will be dead. And it's ridiculous to say by 20, it's ridiculous. The rate that we're going to all be dead by 2040. Maybe somehow we'll be able to survive all of this goddamn corruption. These oligarchs are just killing us every day.
Addition to a zero emissions bus fleet.
How'd they do today? Oh, yeah.
And as you know that we are...
Yeah, stock market, all new highs again. Another all-time high on the stock market. Every day an all-time high. The worse it is for average people, the higher the stock market goes, the richer people get. I mean, it's in your face. It's out there in the open. The theft is clearly visible. And we're all just sitting here, including me. Of course, I don't participate. I'm just here in my house. I don't go anywhere anymore. There's nowhere to go. It's over as far as I'm concerned. But this stuff here, they're going to pretend that they're doing things, and people will believe it.
We are continuing to invest in electric technology. And so
electric
technology's
been so reliable. How many power failures have there been? I think this is all bad, and I don't know, man. It's all part of another scam. I don't think government is capable of ever doing anything that's actually for people. I don't think it's never done not in this country. Maybe the European countries or some of the Asian countries, but not here. Here it's 100% criminal operation.
It's a great first step. Next slide, please. In 2020, to further inform our climate actions, TRIMET conducted a carbon audit that confirmed that our fleet as well as our electricity use were the highest drivers of our carbon emissions. So you can see this vertical bar here. It's broken up into different bands that are color-coded. And the fleet is the lower green band, and electricity is the sort of middle red band. And you can see that those two are definitely contribute to the majority. Next slide, please. So as you recall, earlier this year in June, we addressed the electricity emissions by moving to 100% renewable electricity, which cut our carbon footprint by about 25%.
I don't know.
Next slide, please.
I don't know. I don't understand that.
Now, with the resolution that we have before you today, we have the opportunity to reduce our carbon emissions by about another 25%, moving our bus fleet to R99.
Okay.
And that is depicted in the bar on the right. You can see that our fixed route bus is 87% of our fleet emissions, and by cutting that to 61%, that leaves 26%, or about a quarter. So that's a big reduction. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just to memorialize the solicitation and the contract resolution for you today. It is with Carson Oil for a 5-year agreement for bulk renewable diesel. And it's important to note that we are going with R99 and not R100 because there needs to be 1% of an additive in the fuel for engine lubricity. We received really advantageous pricing from Carson, although it was about 10% higher than the independent cost.
So this is not. It's $93 million. Yeah, a million here, a million there. So it's 10% higher than the independent cost estimate. So it's $9 million. No bid for that. I don't know. Now, here's a quick $93 million. Here, take it. We can't find bus drivers, and we're not going to raise the salary, but we're going to have $93 million for this. You see what a scam this is? It's just scam after scam after scam.
Estimate. They shared with us that they were able to negotiate a fixed differential with Neste, the manufacturer for renewable diesel, for the life of the contract. We did not receive any bids for the lift fleet. That was a little disappointing, but as we did some market research after the solicitation closed, we found out from fuel distributors that they found it hard to be competitive with their pricing, and there's a regional and a national shortage of drivers with a commercial driver's license. And
yeah, this is part of the controlled demolition of society. All of these shortages are part of the agenda to destroy society so the oligarchy can swoop in and remanufacture it in the way they want it. And this is all part of the program here. Very few people can actually see it because they're not paying any attention to this. I happen to spend all day paying attention to this. This is my new hobby. Besides, I'm not just doing calls. I'm doing a ton of research at the same time.
Specifically ones with a hazmat certification as well. So fueling the lift fleet, it requires a different approach than our fixed route bus.
Why?
The lift fleet requires wet hose fueling, and that requires a fuel tanker truck to go to the yards where the vehicles are housed between the hours of 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. and fuel each vehicle individually. So as you can imagine, that's pretty labor intensive, and I think that's why the distributors found it hard to price that portion of our business and be competitive. So with that feedback, we will continue to work with staff internally and continue to work with the market to find a solution to transition the lift fleet to renewable diesel. And we hope to be able to bring something back to the board for consideration in the near future.
Yeah, back to the puppets.
That concludes my presentation. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. That's
Well, why not, right? I mean, so it's another $9 million that could have been used to expand service or to get drivers. But, it's part of this scam, this go green scam, everything. This is the New World Order agenda also is this green stuff.
That's really helpful. Before we get into any discussion and or questions, is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I move we approve this resolution.
I second. This is Thomas.
Okay. It's been moved by Director Gonzalez and seconded by Director Kim. And all in favor? Oh, no. I have to ask for the discussion.
Yes.
Okay, Director Gonzalez.
Thank you. I finally found the raising hand button. I have a couple of questions. Thank you for the presentation. I'm glad to see that this was already on the radar of the decarbonization strategy and that we're taking a step that has been thought out previously. I'm sad that the bidders did not expand the proposal to include the lift fleet, but even if they had, we would still have other work to do. So I appreciate that. I've got a couple of questions. I'm seeing that we are clearly making a step today for improving our environmental impact and not only reducing our carbon footprint, but investing in industries that are on a growth and that are helping themselves scale so that they could offer the same solution of reducing that carbon perhaps to other users, to other end users. But I am also equally interested in making sure that every time we do something to help the environment, we're looking at the social impacts as well. I'm a deep believer that we can't have sustainability without equity. So
here we go with the equity nonsense again. Jeez, this is so boring and ridiculous.
I have a question about the sourcing of these materials. Does anyone know where this R99 is produced, or how it's produced? Because I'd love to uncover what the embodied carbon of this solution could be. And I wonder if there's opportunities for these things to be done in Oregon with Oregon byproducts and with Oregon labor sources. Do you know how close we are to that today? I haven't heard of any of this being produced in Oregon as of yet.
I can chime in, Sam, if that's okay.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, I know you've done the research here, so why don't you go ahead and answer?
Sure, thank you. Director Gonzalez, thank you for the question. The renewable diesel manufactured by Neste is manufactured in Singapore.
Oh, Jesus.
That is their main manufacturing refinery. And the product is barged from Singapore over to the West Coast. And as you know, California is a bit more of a mature market when it comes to low carbon fuels. So a lot of the Neste product is delivered to California customers. And Carson is Neste's primary fuel distributor in Oregon. And they have worked really hard to get Neste to commit some products to Oregon because the demand in Oregon is continuing to grow. We've done a significant amount of market research, and there are 2 refineries in California that are being decommissioned. They're petroleum fuel refineries today, but they're being decommissioned and will be turned into renewable diesel refineries within the next 12 to 18 months. So I think that's promising. There is also a manufacturer in Washington that is sourcing local agricultural oils and feedstocks and used restaurant grease. And so, in the next couple of years, I think we will see more domestic production of renewable diesel, which...
So this is coming from Singapore. Can you believe that?
Should help, should help the pricing, should help the supply, and hopefully, Oregon, as we mature in the low carbon fuel industry and market, we will be able to get our hands on some of the locally produced fuel.
Thank you for that information, Lester. And I encourage our staff on TRIMET that are looking at the carbon footprint and doing the carbon impact assessment, that they account for that embodied carbon footprint, because there's also that proprietary manufacturing process.
Yes.
In many cases, we'll rely on non-renewable fuels in order to enrich those feedstocks to get to the point where we can utilize them in our fleet. So, while I appreciate all the steps we're taking now, I want to make sure that we're keeping our eye on the prize. The carbon calculation is not what the planet cares about at the end of the day. It's really the outcomes and the carbon footprint. I'd love to see us make sure that we're not blind to the embodied carbon impact of our source materials, and I encourage our legislators at the state level to really look at how Oregon can begin to lean into becoming a more active participant in the building up of this infrastructure, because this market is very much on the rise, and we have incredible feedstock in Oregon that could serve well to not only bring the fuels, but to bring great living wage jobs
billions. I can be
into
a
our
billionaire
state.
too now.
So thank you so much for being part of that process. Let's not slow down.
Yeah, Ozzy. Yeah, you're so full of shit, Ozzy.
Director Bauman, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. I want to echo Ozzy's comments. Certainly, looking at the having these products, this renewable diesel produced locally would have a fantastic impact on our economy and on the environment as well. I'm thinking, for example, about the carbon footprint of shipping this product from across the ocean. So that's certainly saving that. The environmental costs from the transportation would be ideal. I wanted to ask what sort of assurances we have around the adequacy of the supply of this R99
good question.
renewable diesel. Have there been issues around just having enough product to make available?
I would wonder about the wisdom of buying a product made from overseas. Is that really smart right now? I mean, their priorities, we already know this. The priorities are all screwed up now. I mean, this world is functioning solely for the elites at the expense of the rest of us. We know it. We see it. It's out in the open. And they have us completely locked out. And workers of the world, stop working.
Test for our needs.
Let's go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Director Bauman. The Carson Oil was able to secure a supply agreement with Neste for the full 5-year volume of renewable diesel that we'll be consuming, which is about 35 million gallons. I think the supply is a good question. Supply chain principles, supply and demand. California is consuming a lot of the products. And so as California's market grows, it's more advantageous for fuel suppliers to sell their product there. And so, I applaud Oregon legislators for passing the legislation that they did a few years ago, because now our market can mature and will create demand. And so with that demand will come more supply and hopefully, stabilize the market a bit. But right now, California is definitely consuming most of the products. And Washington just recently passed legislation as well, which is similar to California's and Oregon. So, we are between two big states that are going to be consuming a lot of product. And so I think our commitment today will help secure a better supply for Oregon and Portland in the long run.
What?
I have a couple of follow-up questions. One is how does the price of this product compare to regular diesel?
Yes.
So we use an index to price this contract, and so we use it's called an OPIS index, and what they do is they take the daily high and low price for B5 biodiesel, which is 5% biodiesel, 95% ultra low sulfur diesel, and it basically calculates an average on a daily basis. And so what we ask for is a differential on top of that.
Can't you just answer the question? Jesus.
Index, and Carson was able to negotiate with Neste a 9.5-cent differential on top of the B5 biodiesel index, which, based on our research, we feel like is a really good deal.
How much is it more than regular standard diesel? He didn't answer the question. He evaded the question.
We can't always fix the differential for the 5-year term, but Carson was able to secure that with Neste. So we are pleased with the pricing we received.
That's not an answer to the question.
So it is tied to the cost of the diesel that we have been using.
It is. That's correct.
I see. Interesting. I will confess that I'm not knowledgeable at all around the chemistry and a lot of these issues, and I understand the point about pure carbon emissions from the R99 diesel. Another big concern, a health concern around diesel fuels is that, as I understand it, is the particulates.
Yeah, I lived on Northwest 23rd Avenue for 20 years. Right off of it in a top floor apartment. And we've been inhaling this diesel. I was inhaling that diesel that's from the TRIMET bus for 20 years. Now they change it.
And that's a big problem in some parts of Portland. Does this R99 renewable diesel also emit pure particulates or no particulates, or how does it compare?
Yeah, what is it? Yeah.
It's a great question. It significantly reduces the carbon particulates that will be emitted into the air from our buses. We have, almost 700 buses that are driving around the region on a daily basis. And so by using a non-petroleum-based product, in the consumption of that fuel, there's a lot less particulate matter that's going to be emitted into the air.
Do you know, is there a percentage reduction, or do you have a sense on that?
So we did a calculation that estimates about 61% reduction in the greenhouse gas emissions from the bus fleet as a result of moving to this. So it's pretty significant.
And if I may add, Lester, specific to particulate matter, Director Baumann, the visual provided in the presentation is not a numeric, but it does show a really good side-by-side comparison. The lack of smoke is indeed the lack of particulates. You don't see all of the carbon emissions in the clear one, but what you do see is the lack of particulates. It's the black smoke that you see that are actually the particulates.
Yeah, sure, Ozzy. I'm sure.
Thank you. Well, that's great news.
I'm sure it's all visible, right? If you can't see it, it's not there, right? Sure.
It's very encouraging for the health of the folks in our community. That's all the questions I had.
I see any other questions. If someone has a question, you can kind of shout out. If hearing none, then I'm going to call for the question and ask all those in favor to please say aye.
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 And any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yeah, who's opposed?
So the motion carries unanimously.
Of course.
So now we'll move on to our final resolution before us today, which is 21.
Wait a minute. Maybe we'll just do this. That's enough. Yep, that's enough. That's a half hour. Over and out.